on your knees, hands where I can see them. Now, the command cuts across the parking garage like a crack of wood splitting. Sharp, final no question in it. Marcus Webb does not flinch. He has heard that voice before. Different faces, different years, different parking garages and hotel lobbies and airport terminals, but always the same voice. He knows what it wants. He knows what will happen if he gives it anything other than perfect compliance. He turns slowly, hands up, palms visible. Officer, his voice is quiet, even, like a man reading from a prepared statement. I'm going to need you to explain the legal basis for this stop. The officer, badge number 471, later identified as Derek Colton, 11 years on the force, twice named Officer of the Year by the Maplewood Police Department, steps forward. His hand is on his weapon, not drawing it, just resting there. A reminder of what he can do if the situation calls for it. Get on the ground. I won't say it again. Marcus Webb counts. 1. Unlawful detention. 2. No stated probable cause. 3. Implied threat of force without reasonable suspicion. He counts the violations the way some men count their breaths. Automatic, continuous, necessary. He gets on the ground. The concrete is cold through his slacks. The overhead fluorescents buzz. Somewhere above him, a garage camera blinks red. He notes it. He has no idea, Officer Colton, what is sitting in the car 30 feet behind you. A black Chevrolet Suburban with government plates. 4 men inside, watching every move you are making. 2 of them are already reaching for their phones. And in 14 minutes, every person in this garage is going to understand exactly how badly you have miscalculated. But this story doesn't start here. Rewind 41 years. Marcus Elijah Webb was born in Baltimore, Maryland, the second of 3 sons to a longshoreman named Robert Webb and a school nurse named Vivian. The Webb household was not wealthy. It was disciplined. Robert Webb left the house at 4:15 in the morning every day for 38 years. He came home smelling of salt water and diesel. He never missed a parent-teacher conference. He never missed a Sunday service. He never missed an opportunity to tell his sons that the world would require more from them than it required from other people, and that the answer to that requirement was not bitterness. It was preparation. Marcus Webb prepared. He graduated top of his class from Baltimore City College. Full scholarship to Johns Hopkins, law degree from the University of Virginia, where he was editor-in-chief of the Law Review and graduated first in his class. He clerked for 2 federal circuit court judges. He spent 8 years as a federal prosecutor in the Eastern District of Virginia, earning convictions in 47 consecutive trials. He was appointed to the federal bench at 41, the youngest federal judge in the district at the time. And 14 months ago, the President of the United States nominated him to serve on the United States Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit, one of the most powerful appellate courts in the country. Marcus Webb is a federal appellate judge. He is also, as of this parking garage floor, a man with cold concrete against his cheek and his hands zip-tied behind his back, while Officer Derek Colton stands over him and calls it procedure. On the dresser in Marcus Webb's hotel room, room 814, sits a small framed photograph. In it, a younger Marcus stands in a law school graduation gown, and beside him stands Robert Webb, older than Marcus remembers him looking in real life. A little thinner, a little more tired, with both hands on his son's shoulders and a smile that does not look like celebration. It looks like relief. Like something held tightly for a very long time has finally been allowed to rest. Robert Webb died 11 months after that photograph was taken. He never saw his son put on a black robe. He never sat in a courtroom and watched his boy run it. Marcus Webb carries that photograph on every trip he takes. He looked at it this morning before heading downstairs to the parking garage to retrieve a document from his car. Just a document. That was all he was doing. He had not broken any laws. He had not raised his voice. He had not made any gesture that any reasonable person, or any court, for that matter, would construe as threatening. He had walked through a parking garage toward a black Chevrolet Suburban, and Derek Colton had watched him do it and decided that a black man moving toward a government vehicle in a nice hotel parking garage needed to be on the ground. Colton did not know that the Suburban belonged to the U.S. Marshals Service. He did not know that the 4 men inside it were Deputy U.S. Marshals assigned to protect Judge Marcus Webb during his visit to Maplewood for a federal judicial conference. He did not know that a 5th marshal, a woman named Dana Okafor, was standing 12 feet behind him right now, and had been for the past 45 seconds, her hand resting near her service weapon, waiting. He did not know any of it. He knew that a black man was on the ground and that he had put him there, and in his experience, the story usually ended there. What Derek Colton does not understand, what 11 years on the Maplewood force and 2 Officer of the Year plaques have not prepared him for, is that the story is only beginning. 9 minutes. There are a few things worth knowing about Derek Colton before the next 9 minutes unfold. He joined the force at 23, fresh out of a 2-year criminal justice program, and he was, by every institutional measure, a good officer. He was prompt. He was thorough. He was exactly what his sergeant wanted standing next to him on a night call. He was good at the work the department asked him to do. He grew up in Maplewood. His father was a cop. His grandfather was a cop. He had pictures of both of them in uniform hanging on the wall of his garage at home, and he looked at those pictures when he was 15 and decided this was what he was going to do. He had not wavered. He had a daughter who was 8 years old, and a wife who packed his lunch every morning, and a sergeant who told him twice a year that he was exactly the kind of officer the department was built on. He also had a record. The department had received 11 complaints against Derek Colton in 11 years. 3 allegations of excessive force. 4 allegations of racially motivated stops. 2 formal grievances from community organizations. 1 civil rights complaint filed with the State Attorney General's office. Every single one of them had been dismissed. 6 dismissed by the Internal Affairs Division, which was supervised by a lieutenant named Gerald Marsh, who had known Colton since he was in diapers and coached him in pee-wee football. 2 dismissed on procedural grounds. 3 closed with no finding. Every person who had filed a complaint against Derek Colton was black. Not all of them. Every single one. Colton had never been formally disciplined. He had been counseled twice, paperwork placed in a file, a conversation, a handshake, a return to duty. He had received 2 commendations in the same years as 2 of the complaints. The system had looked at Derek Colton from every available angle and decided, 11 times, that it saw nothing worth addressing. Lieutenant Marsh had signed 6 of those dismissals. He had told Colton after one of them, "Some people file complaints like it's their hobby. Don't let it get to your head." It didn't get to his head. It settled somewhere lower, into the part of a person that makes decisions before the thinking mind catches up. He had learned something from those 11 dismissals. He had learned that the institution would back him. He had learned that the people who filed complaints went away eventually, moved, dropped the case, couldn't afford to keep pressing. He had learned that the ground was a safe place to put someone if he felt like it, because the system had told him 11 times, in 11 separate official findings, that his judgment was sound. He had no idea that the institution that mattered this morning was not the one that had his picture on its recruitment posters. 6 minutes. Inside the hotel above the parking garage, the Federal Judicial Conference was in its second day. 43 federal judges from the 4th and 5th Circuits were in attendance. The conference had been convened to address, among other matters, a series of pending cases involving law enforcement accountability and qualified immunity doctrine. Marcus Webb had been scheduled to deliver opening remarks on the second morning. His remarks, drafted over 3 months and revised 17 times, sat in the document he had been going to retrieve from the Suburban when Derek Colton ordered him to his knees. Upstairs, in room 844, Carolyn Webb was still sleeping when her phone lit up. 4 minutes and counting. She was a 23-year veteran of the FBI's Civil Rights Division. She had worked public corruption cases, hate crime prosecutions, and 3 separate cases involving law enforcement officers who had crossed the line the institution was supposed to hold. She had a particular fluency in situations like this one. She had studied them her entire career. She woke up, read the first message from Marshal Okafor, and did not panic. She made 3 phone calls. She sent 2 emails. She photographed her own phone screen 3 times. She pressed record on the hotel room's smart TV, which had a built-in camera, and documented herself reading aloud the time, the date, the location, and a summary of what was occurring in the parking garage beneath her. Documentation wins. Emotion loses. Evidence is everything. She dressed. She composed a message to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the district. She composed a second message to the FBI's Office of Professional Responsibility. She composed a third to an attorney in Baltimore she had known for 30 years. She sent all 3 before the elevator opened on the parking garage level. Meanwhile, 2 floors below the Judicial Conference, in a corridor that smelled like hotel carpet and recycled air, a woman named Patricia Holt was walking fast. Holt was a special investigator with the Department of Justice's Office of Inspector General. She had been attending the conference. She had been attending it specifically because she had spent the past 8 months building a file on a pattern of racially discriminatory policing in 3 mid-Atlantic departments, of which Maplewood was one. She had 23 pages on Derek Colton. She had 6 pages on Gerald Marsh. She had been waiting, with the patience of someone who understood that cases are won with documentation and not with outrage, for a triggering incident that the system could not dismiss. She had not expected it to come to her. But here it was. She sent a message to her supervisor in Washington. 3 words. We have it. Back in the parking garage, Derek Colton had not moved. He was standing over Marcus Webb, and the thing he was feeling was not doubt. He did not yet feel doubt. He felt the particular confidence of a man who has stood in this exact position before and been proven right by the machinery that followed. He was thinking about the paperwork. He was thinking about how to describe the initial observation. He was thinking about what he was going to have for lunch. He was not thinking about the 4 men in the Suburban who had now been sitting there for 3 minutes and 45 seconds watching him, because no one in his 11-year career had ever arrived with 4 men in a Suburban. 2 minutes. On your feet, Colton said. We're going to have a conversation downtown. Marcus Webb did not move immediately. When you have been on the wrong side of this scenario enough times, not just yourself, but your father, your grandfather, the whole long line of black men who have felt this concrete against their cheek in one form or another, you develop a kind of stillness that is not passivity. It is calculation. He was still counting. He was at 7 violations now. He thought about the photograph on his dresser. He thought about his father's hands on his shoulders and his father's face in that photograph, and the 38 years of 4:15 mornings that had gone into producing one son who could stand in a courtroom and run it. He thought, no, not today, not like this. He thought, stay calm, stay methodical. Let the record be built. He got to his feet slowly and with complete control. He did not need help. He did not ask for it. He stood up the way a man stands up when he has decided that dignity is the one thing no one can take from him. Donna Okafor stepped forward. United States Marshal. Her voice was not raised. It did not need to be. Step away from the detainee. Colton turned. 3 minutes. What happened next took 11 seconds. Okafor showed her credentials. Colton looked at them. He looked at the Suburban. He looked at the 4 men who had now stepped out and were standing in a loose arc 15 feet away, all of them watching him with expressions that were entirely professional and entirely unreadable. He looked at Marcus Webb on the ground. Colton's mouth opened. Nothing came out. "You will uncuff him," Okafor said. "You will do it now." Colton's hands moved toward his belt. They were not steady. Marcus Webb stood up from the concrete floor. He straightened his jacket. He looked at Derek Colton for a moment. A long moment, the kind that people remember for years afterward. And then, he said, in the same quiet, even voice he had used since the first moment of this encounter, "My name is Marcus Elijah Webb. I am a United States Circuit Court judge for the 4th Circuit. I was on my way to retrieve a document. That is the entirety of my conduct this morning." He paused. "My clerks are going to be sending you something shortly. I suggest you read it." He picked up the document from the ground where it had fallen when Colton forced him down. He walked to the elevator. He did not look back. The elevator doors closed. Derek Colton stood in the parking garage, badge on his chest, gun at his hip, 2 Officer of the Year plaques on a wall somewhere in a precinct building across town, and understood, for the first time in his career, that the institution was not going to protect him this time. By 10:30 that morning, the garage security footage had been secured by the U.S. Marshals Service and transferred to the U.S. Attorney's Office. By noon, the chief of the Maplewood Police Department had been notified by the FBI's Civil Rights Division that an investigation had been opened. By 2 o'clock, a reporter with the Baltimore Sun had received an anonymous tip. She made 4 calls. All 4 were answered. By 4 in the afternoon, a video clip, 38 seconds of garage camera footage, a black man in a suit on the concrete and a white officer standing over him, had been posted on 3 separate news platforms and was being shared at a rate of 4,000 times per hour. By 6 o'clock, Derek Colton's name was in 700,000 social media posts. By the following morning, a spokesperson for the Maplewood Police Department issued a statement saying that Officer Derek Colton had been placed on administrative leave pending an internal investigation. The statement expressed the department's commitment to accountability and community trust. It did not mention Marcus Webb by name. By the end of the week, it did not matter. The federal investigation found the following. Colton had no lawful basis to detain Marcus Webb. The stop was not preceded by any observed criminal conduct, any reported incident, or any call for service. The use of zip restraints on a civilian who had not resisted, who had complied completely, and who had stated his intent to comply verbally before being restrained, constituted excessive force. The investigation also found that Colton had accessed the hotel's guest list through an unofficial channel 30 minutes before the incident, a fact that raised additional questions the investigation declined to answer publicly, but noted in its findings. The Internal Affairs investigation, now supervised, for the first time, by an independent reviewer appointed by the State Attorney General's office, reviewed all 11 previous complaints against Colton. The reviewer found that 3 of the dismissals had been improper. She referred those findings to the District Attorney's office and to the FBI. Colton was charged with civil rights violations under federal statute, deprivation of rights under color of law, and official misconduct. He entered a no-contest plea 14 months after the parking garage. He was sentenced to 2 years of probation, a $34,000 fine, and a permanent ban from law enforcement employment. He surrendered his badge and his service weapon on a Thursday afternoon. His lawyer shook his hand. No one else was there. Lieutenant Gerald Marsh, the Internal Affairs Supervisor who had dismissed 6 of the complaints against Colton, the man who had coached him in Pee Wee football and called him a good kid well into his 30s, retired from the department 3 months after the investigation began. He cited health reasons. His pension was placed under review. 2 of the complaint dismissals he had authorized were referred for further investigation. That investigation is ongoing. Marcus Webb addressed the judicial conference the morning after the parking garage incident. He had not slept. He did not show it. He did not speak about what had happened to him. He began with a case citation. He laid out the doctrinal history of qualified immunity. He traced its expansion through 4 decades of case law. And then he said this, I want to be careful here. My experience yesterday is not the story. My experience yesterday is a data point. The story is the 11 complaints. The story is the 6 dismissals. The story is the institution that looked at a pattern and decided the pattern was acceptable. The story is the man who learned, from 11 years of institutional validation, that the ground was a safe place to put someone who looked like me. He was not wrong about the institution. He was wrong about which institution had jurisdiction in that garage. I share what happened to me not because I want your sympathy. I have a security detail and a federal appointment. And most people who have experienced what I experienced yesterday had neither of those things going home. I share it because I want us to sit with the arithmetic. If it took a federal judge and 4 U.S. Marshals and a security camera to produce this outcome, what does justice look like for everyone else? He paused. That is the question we are here to answer. 6 months later, Marcus Webb authored the majority opinion in a Fourth Circuit case that significantly narrowed the application of qualified immunity in civil rights claims involving racially motivated police stops. The opinion was 47 pages long. Legal scholars called it the most consequential law enforcement accountability ruling from a circuit court in a decade. The opinion cited 11 cases. The 11th was a new one, filed by the family of a man in Memphis who had been detained without cause 3 years earlier, and who had not had 4 U.S. Marshals in a suburban 30 feet away. That man's name was not Marcus Webb. That man's family had waited 3 years for someone with the resources and the standing to make the argument their father could not make on his own. Marcus Webb made it for him. Deputy Marshal Donna Okafor received a commendation from the Marshal's Service for her conduct in the garage. She framed it and put it on her desk. When people ask her about it, she says she was doing her job. When they press her, she says, the law is only as good as who enforces it and how. I was in a position to enforce it correctly. That's not heroism. That's the job. Officer Ray Briggs, the 3rd officer to arrive in the garage that morning, who had watched what Colton was doing from 40 feet away, who had not intervened, and who had initially signed off on the paperwork characterizing the encounter as a routine stop, requested a transfer to the department's Community Policing Division 6 weeks after the investigation began. He enrolled in a racial bias training program. He completed it. He has not spoken publicly about what he saw in the parking garage. But he transferred. That is something. It is not absolution. It is a start. The teenager who filmed part of the garage encounter on her phone, she had been walking to her car when it began, and she had stopped and filmed without saying anything, and then kept going. Posted the footage to her social media account before the security footage became public. Her clip reached 2.2 million views in 36 hours. 6 months later, she enrolled in a pre-law program at a state university. She wrote in her application essay that she did not know, the morning in the garage, that she was watching a federal judge on the ground. She wrote that it did not matter. She wrote, "I knew I was watching something wrong. I filmed it. I shared it. I'm still asking myself why that was the most I could do. I want to be in a position to do more." She got in. Marcus Webb still travels with the photograph. It was on the desk in room 814 the morning of the parking garage. It is on every desk in every hotel room he stays in, city after city, circuit after circuit. Some mornings he looks at it for a long time. Some mornings he just touches the frame and goes to work. His wife, a retired FBI special agent named Carolyn Webb, who spent 23 years in the Bureau's Civil Rights Division, and who, on the morning of the garage incident, had sent 9 messages, made 3 calls, and built a complete document trail before Marcus had reached the elevator. Asked him once, months later, whether he thought anything had really changed. He thought about it for a while. "The opinion is in the record," he said. "The case is cited now. The doctrine moved. That's not what I asked." He was quiet for a moment. Outside, the sun was going down. "Someone has to be watching," he said finally. "As long as someone is watching, it's possible to move. The day everyone stops watching is the day it stops being possible." She took his hand. They sat with that for a while. If this story reached something in you, and if you know that the story of Marcus Webb is not exceptional, that it is common, that there are men and women who experienced exactly what he experienced without the security detail, or the federal appointment, or the camera, share it. Because documentation wins. Evidence wins. And the record only exists if people keep building it. Drop a comment below. Have you ever watched something wrong happen in front of you and felt powerless to change it? What did it take to change that? We read every comment. We build more stories from what you tell us. Subscribe, not because we asked you to, but because every view of every story like this one is a vote for the kind of accountability that makes the next Marcus Webb's path a little less necessary, and the next Derek Colton's path a little less predictable. Justice is not an event. It is a practice. Come back and practice it with us.